People do this with all different kinds of racism. Oh, I didn't say black people. I said basketball Americans. Yikes. So here's the dossier A verdict. This is a confirmed anti-Semitic statement, very high confidence. This item alone establishes act-level anti-Semitic rhetoric. The person-level behavioral label still depends on recurrence, which the remaining dossier supply. So here's the first piece of direct evidence. At the end of today, we will ask the question, see if we are reasonably justified in claiming that Anna Kasparian is an anti-Semite, or maybe we won't be reasonably justified in saying that. So far, I mean, it's crystal clear to me that Norm Finkelstein is an explicit anti-Semite. I would call him like high-resolution anti-Semite. And then Hassan Piker and Kyle Kalinske, who we just did last night, those guys I would consider low tier or low resolution anti-Semites. There's definitely a difference between the Norm Finkelstein brand and these other people. People can go on as many shows as they want and try to claim like, you know, I don't have a problem with Jews. It's Israel as a state. It's Israelis in general, or it's Zionism. But just because you go out and say that and you make that explicit, it doesn't mean we're not going to be able to investigate and track your behaviors, including the kind of people you call your heroes, the kind of people you prop up, the kind of people you platform, and how that platforming is done. You know, if you bring on someone like Norm Finkelstein and he comes on and espouses many different examples of anti-Semitism on your show, and there is no pushback, there's no resistance to that. There's just like, thank you at the end. Thank you for educating us. And on the other hand, some of these people like Kyle Kalinske and Hassan Piker will call other things anti-Semitism. So they have a way to distinguish between non-anti-Semitism and anti-Semitism, but they don't realize that they are promoting anti-Semitism out into the world. And there's a pattern to it, a frequency to it, which is why I can conclude that they are anti-Semites. And there are different levels of anti-Semites, of course. I think it's important for people to start calling things as they are. I see a lot of people worried about throwing the label of anti-Semite on someone who engages in routine anti-Semitism. But let's be clear about what an anti-Semite is doing. An anti-Semite is a person who holds prejudice, discrimination, or hatred against Jewish people. So is there evidence of prejudice? Is there evidence of discrimination or hatred? And how can that look? How can that manifest in people that might have these feelings? And maybe some of them don't even know they're doing it, but we have anti-Semitism standards, and we have high schools of thought on how to identify anti-Semitism, even if Jews are not being mentioned specifically. The example I like to use, that if someone says, no, if you're targeting Zionists, then it can't be anti-Semitic. Well, that's not true by any scholarly or academic definition of anti-Semitism. I'll give you an example. If someone comes up to a Jewish person and says, yeah, I really wish the Nazis would have not just killed 6 million Zionists during World War II. I wish they would have got all the Zionists. That's anti-Semitic. Oh, but they just said Zionists. Someone said, so you can be an anti-Semite even if you don't have hatred in your heart for Jews? Correct. An anti-Semite is a person who holds prejudice, discrimination, or hatred against Jewish people. And if you're putting work out into the world and many people in society are signaling towards you and saying, whoa, that's anti-Semitic, and you dig your heels in and you say, no, I just said Zionist. No, I just said Israel. People do this with all different kinds of racism. Oh, I didn't say black people. I said basketball Americans. Yikes. Thank you for being with me here tonight, everyone. Make sure you smash that like button. NorCal says, this page went from debates between religious and atheist to defending Judaism in every post. Where have I defended Judaism? Once. What are you talking about? And then this, where you say, is the owner a Jewish man? Do you think that might be anti-Semitic? Asking that question? Why do you think it would need to be a Jewish man to be looking out to see who's guilty of being an anti-Semite? Well, it's time to get into it. Make sure you smash that like button. We're going to get going here right away. So, An Kasparian. This is version 1 of the report. I will always generate version 2 of the report after we go through version 1 for the first time together, because there will usually be things that I need to personally adjudicate, and we'll also add to the extensiveness of this report by adding our own transcripts and different things throughout the course of this analysis. All right. An Kasparian and Antisemitism. Version 1, Forensic Multi-Framework Adversarial Fact Check. Direct source recovery of 2025-2026 control rhetoric. The December 2025, quote, Jewish lobby statement. February 2026, quote, Goyim language. Israeli occupation formulations. Epstein/blackmail claims. Man, we've been seeing that a lot. This conspiracy theory tying Israel to Epstein. So we'll see which brand of this shows up. Norman Finkelstein affinity and normalization, plus substantial counter evidence in which Kasparian rejects hatred of Jews and distinguishes Jews from the Israeli state. Under a behavior-based operational definition, repeated public use of propagation of anti-Semitic rhetoric/tropes across independent episodes, the cumulative record supports describing An Kasparian as an anti-Semite in a public rhetoric sense. The report does not establish that she privately hates Jews and does not classify ordinary anti-Zionism, criticism of AIPAC, opposition to Israeli policy, or advocacy for Palestinians as anti-Semitic by default. Yes, I can see the game playing twice. I thought I'd fill up the screen as well. Executive finding and version 1 adjudication. Bottom line, the strongest direct evidence is not merely extreme criticism of Israel. Kasparian has explicitly said the Jewish lobby does control the U.S., repeatedly described America as controlled or occupied by Israel/Israelis, used the established far-right coded formula, quote, the Goyim are waking, collectively linked Israelis with murderous conduct and, quote, God's chosen people, endorsed a contemporary Israel/Nazi comparison, and asserted an Israel-linked blackmail mechanism as an, quote, actual system. These incidents occur across independent dates and trope families. The person-level label still requires precision. In ordinary public discourse, quote, anti-Semite can mean a person whose recurring public conduct is anti-Semitic. In a stronger psychological sense, it can mean someone with stable hatred or hostility towards Jews as Jews. Public source analysis is much better at adjudicating the first proposition than the second. Of course, we cannot read what is in An Kasparian's mind. Version 1 of this analysis therefore reaches a 2-level judgment. Behavioral/public rhetoric classification is supported with high confidence. Subjective anti-Jewish hatred is not established. Remember, we do not need to establish intent. We do not need to establish what is in the person's mind in order to meet the burden of the label of anti-Semite or anti-Semitism. Kasparian has repeatedly said that Jewish people are not responsible for the Israeli government, refused to generalize from isolated Talmud passages to Jews, and stated that she has no hatred for Judaism or Jewish Americans. The December 4th, 2025 Piers Morgan exchange is the cleanest direct item because the target is explicitly, quote, Jewish, not merely Israeli or Zionist. After Hen Mazig accused Kasparian for saying that, quote, the Jewish lobby controls the U.S., she answered, quote, the Jewish lobby does control the U.S. That proposition closely matches the classic Jewish government answered, quote, the classic Jewish government control pattern identified by JDA, Nexus, AJC, and the historical literature on anti-Semitic conspiracy myths. The conclusion is robust to removal of weaker allegations. The Larry Ellison hand-rubbing dispute, the child killing / money formulation, and every Norman Finkelstein association can all be removed without changing this core pattern. The report does not need guilt by association, ambiguous visuals, audience comments, or activist compilations to reach its finding. Scope, terminology, and the person level threshold. 5 questions that must be collapsed. Factual predicate. Is the underlying proposition true, false, exaggerated, or unresolved? Content classification. Does the wording reproduce a named anti-Semitic trope or framework example? Normalization. Does the speaker praise, adopt, launder, or repeatedly platform a trope-level proposition? Pattern. Are the incidents independent, recurrent, multi-domain, and resistant to removal of borderline items? Person level label. Does the cumulative public behavior justify a behavioral description without pretending to read private motive? Operational definition used in version 1. Thank you so much for the super chat from Heaven's Feel. I really appreciate that. If you are interested adding the, quote, 3D model of anti-Semitism by Sharansky and the expanded, quote, 4D model by Schwartz-Freisel and Reinharz might add to your analysis. I personally use that framework. Okay, that's very good. I'm going to save your comment and I'm going to look into those things, okay? I appreciate that. Thank you so much for the super chat, by the way. I really, really do appreciate that. By the way, everyone, the best way to support, I mean, the super chats are amazing. But if you want to give long-standing support to this work I'm doing and to the channel, the best way to support this effort is to become a channel member. It pays for a few diapers per month for my children. You can think of it that way. I really appreciate your guys' support. Thank you for being here. And make sure you smash that like button and share this stream around. Share it on Discord, share it on X, share it on Facebook, everywhere. Okay. Operational definition used in version 1. For this report, a behaviorally classifiable anti-Semite is a speaker who repeatedly and non-trivially engages in, endorses, or propagates anti-Semitic stereotypes, collective demonization, coded anti-Jewish rhetoric, or conspiracy structures across independent episodes, such that the pattern is not reasonably explained by a single slip, quotation, or one disputed Israel framework example. The definition does not require proof of conscious hatred. It also does not convert anti-Zionism or criticism of Israel into anti-Semitism by default. Why intent matters, but is not dispositive. Intent is relevant to culpability and to the stronger psychological label, but content can reproduce a discriminatory trope without a confession of animus. Conversely, repeated content level hits can support a behavioral classification even when the speaker sincerely denies hatred. This distinction is central to Kasparian because the record contains unusually strong exculpatory statements about Jews alongside unusually direct control rhetoric. You are all familiar with the verdict vocabulary at this point. What does confirmed mean? Primary or near primary evidence establishes the statement or act. Then we have lesser tier supported, probable, hold, misleading or overstated, false, non-ratable, and framework dependent. Okay, let's look at the method for this particular analysis. Pangburn Forensic Replication Standard. Primary source first. Direct TYT, the Young Turks the Young Turks transcripts, direct social media captures, full interview transcripts, official framework documents, FEC records, and high-quality wire reporting receive highest weight. Quote reconstruction is separated from fact adjudication. A quote can be authentic even if the proposition asserted in it is false or unproven. So I don't have to read through all of this, but when this report is on our website tomorrow, it'll be version 2 of the report if we have to regenerate anything. But you'll be able to read through that. Adversarial rule. No allegation is upgraded merely because it fits the pattern. A strong reputational conclusion must remain true after weak or ambiguous items are removed. The decisive version 1 pattern uses Kasparian's own recovered words, not the rhetoric of her critics. Here are the evidence tiers. We have primary, official, near primary, reputable contextual reporting, advocacy/partisan corroboration, community allegation/social discussion. Reputational asymmetry. Negative reputational findings require positive evidence. The absence of a clip does not prove innocence. Hostile recollection does not prove guilt. Counter evidence can alter the inference about intent without, quote, canceling a confirmed statement. More information here. Framework triangulation. Of course, we are going to be using a three-way collection of usages related to anti-Semitism and what is an anti-Semite. So we have IHRA. IHRA's non-legally binding working definition emphasizes context. It expressly states that criticism of Israel, comparable to criticism of any other state, is not anti-Semitic. While its illustrative examples include classic conspiracy claims about Jewish power/control and comparisons of contemporary Israeli policy to that of the Nazis. Jerusalem Declaration on Anti-Semitism, the JDA. JDA is more protective of anti-Zionism and radical criticism of Israel than IHRA. That makes it a useful stress test. It nevertheless identifies negative essentializing generalizations about Jews and classic fantasies of Jewish government/media/economic control as anti-Semitic. Its framework also allows Israel/Zionism language to become anti-Semitic where the target is functionally Jews or where a classic anti-Jewish stereotype is reproduced. Nexus. Nexus distinguishes ordinary Israel criticism from myths that portray Israel as part of a sinister Jewish control conspiracy, or treat the malign hidden hand of Israel/Zionism as the explanation for broad social and political events. That distinction is directly relevant to Kasparian's, quote, occupied and controlled language and her later blackmail system assertion. Why the, quote, Jewish lobby sentence is unusually important. Framework disputes are sharpest when a speaker says, quote, Israel, quote, Zionist, or, quote, Israeli. The December 4th statement removes much of that ambiguity because the grammatical subject is explicitly, quote, the Jewish lobby. AJC's terminology guide similarly distinguishes ordinary discussion of specific pro-Israel lobbies from using, quote, Jewish lobby to describe Jewish control of Washington. Item by item framework map. So we're going to look at some general quotes here that we're going to be examining. So the issue, Jewish lobby controls the U.S. The IHRA would consider this classic Jewish power/control example strongly implicated. The JDA, there's a direct concern here, Jews/Jewish collective presented as controlling government. Nexus, direct concern, sinister control structure. So this is a big one. This is across the board anti-Semitism, this idea that Jewish lobby controls the U.S. America, quote, occupied and controlled by Israel/Israelis. Contextual, not automatically merely because Israel is named. Concern rises if, quote, Israelis functions as a proxy for Jews or classic control myth, directly relevant to hidden hand / sinister control analysis. We have a claim, Goyim are walking. This is not a named IHRA example. Context is decisive. Coded classic anti-Jewish conspiracy language strongly concerning to the JDA. Strong concern from Nexus perspective, given established conspiracy provenance. Israel / IDF, quote, modern day Nazis. This is direct illustrative Israel / Nazi example. This is the IHRA anti-Semitic violation. JDA, not automatic, context and target matter. Nexus, contextual rather than categorical. On these issues, the comparison to Israelis or Jews, of course, to modern day Nazis, JDA and Nexus seem to allow for this under certain contexts without stepping into anti-Semitism, but the IHRA is very strong on this. Collective Israeli, quote, chosen people rhetoric. The IHRA would be concerned if Jewish religion is used to essentialize a predominantly Jewish collectivity. The JDA, concern rises with negative Jewish theological essentialization. Nexus, concern if national criticism becomes anti-Jewish collective stereotyping. Epstein / Israel blackmail system. IHRA, not anti-Semitic if evidence-based intelligence reporting. JDA, concern if unsupported claim reproduces classic Jewish hidden power narrative. Like if this is supported, it's not an issue, right? But if there's no positive evidence to support it, that's where people start asking questions. Well, why do you believe that this is likely the case? Why are you attributing this to Israel or to Israelis? Direct relevance when unproven hidden Israeli mechanism is used to explain U.S. state behavior. AIPAC / donor spending, legitimate evidence-based criticism is not anti-Semitic. Ordinarily permissible political criticism, ordinarily permissible control mythology is the boundary. So there's nothing wrong, of course, as we've been identifying through all of these reports, by criticizing AIPAC and donor spending. If you do create a monolith out of the donors and say, allude to the Jewish donors, something like that, then that's targeting a Jewish subgroup. Still fair game to be labeled anti-Semitism. The overall conclusion does not depend on any one contested rule. If the IHRA Nazi comparison example is removed, the direct Jewish control sentence coded, quote, Goyim formula and recurrent hidden control structure remain. If the JDA / Nexus hidden control analysis is rejected, the explicit Jewish lobby statement and IHRA Nazi comparison still establish act level anti-Semitic content. All right. Errorbot, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. Says beard return when? Hopefully sooner rather than later. Hopefully. It usually takes about a month. All right. So we have the master findings at a glance before we get into the actual long form audit here. August 6th, Israelis plus, quote, God's chosen people plus slaughtered demons. This is collective religious essentialization, not literal blood libel. So we just went through all of these. Oh, I got to give my boy a kiss. He's going to bed. All right. I think we've went through most of these already. Israel controls the United States. Israeli government / IDF, quote, modern day Nazis. Direct IHRA illustrative example. Framework dependent otherwise. August 25th, dancing Israelis / 9/11 material. Real detention predicate. Foreknowledge not established. So we'll be getting into all these in more detail here. Evidence chronology. We have the episode / issue. We have the forensic significance here. Okay. Dossier A. The Jewish lobby does control the U.S. from Anna Kasparian. I got a fly on the screen. There we go. So December 4th, 2025, the cleanest direct item. During a Piers Morgan panel, Hen Mazig summarizes several accusations against Kasparian and says that she claimed, quote, the Jewish lobby controls the U.S. At approximately 9 minutes and 27 seconds, Kasparian responds directly, the Jewish lobby does control the U.S. This is stronger evidence than an analyst paraphrasing, quote, Israel lobby as, quote, Jewish lobby. The phrase was supplied to Kasparian in the accusation, and she affirmatively adopted it rather than correcting the noun. The sentence, therefore, has unusually high evidentiary value for the content level question. Why, quote, lobby criticism is not the problem by itself. Pro-Israel political spending is real. United Democracy Project is a registered independent expenditure only committee, and FEC data document substantial spending. Named organizations, donors, lobbying strategies, independent expenditures, candidate pressure, and policy alignment are legitimate subjects of investigation. The analytic boundary is the move from a specific organization or network to a generalized ethno-religious mechanism, quote, the Jewish lobby, and from influence or pressure to categorical control. The historical trope is not, quote, a Jewish donor made a donation. It is that Jews collectively or as a hidden bloc control governments. So the framework result here, JDA's classic control guidance, Nexus's sinister control analysis, and AGC's terminology guidance converge here. AJC specifically warns that, quote, Jewish lobby becomes anti-Semitic when used to describe Jewish control of Washington. So here's the dossier A verdict. This is a confirmed anti-Semitic statement, very high confidence. This item alone establishes act-level anti-Semitic rhetoric. The person-level behavioral label still depends on recurrence, which the remaining dossier supply. So here's the first piece of direct evidence. Someone says Pangburn is a Mossad asset. Who told you that? Was it Bibi? He wasn't supposed to say that. Where's my $7,000 check, by the way? Let's look at dossier B. Quote, occupied and controlled, the Israel control sequence. August 9th, 2025, quote, occupied and controlled by the Israelis. An archived capture of Kasparian's ex-post states that the United States is, quote, occupied and controlled by the Israelis, and frames the political choice as loyalty to America versus the country occupying it. The target is not literally, quote, Jews, but, quote, the Israelis is a people-level plural rather than the Israeli cabinet, AIPAC, or a named donor network. Explicit confirmation of the control thesis. Quote, I did say that Israel controls the United States, and I meant it. So this was on August 25th, 2025. Kasparian then attributes lawmakers' behavior primarily to AIPAC pressure/money and raises the possibility of blackmail. This surrounding context matters because it identifies mechanisms she believes are concrete rather than mystical. Yet the conclusion, quote, controls the United States is far stronger than, quote, has substantial influence and leaves little room for congressional agency, strategic alignment, evangelical politics, defense industry interests, public opinion, party ideology, or ordinary alliance behavior. February 18th, 2026, recurrence and escalation. Quote, this is a country just fully occupied and controlled by Israel and their interests. This is the Young Turks, February 18th, 2026. Later in the same episode, she again describes the government as occupied by Israel's interests and predicts future U.S. wars on the basis that Israel controls American decision-making. Repetition across 6 months weakens an, quote, isolated hyperbole explanation. Welcome back, everyone, tonight. Please smash that like button and share the stream around. Really appreciate that. Let's look at Zog adjacent structure without mind reading. Quote, Zionist occupied government. Zog, is a white supremacist conspiracy formula claiming the US government is controlled by Jews. One more time, everybody. Zionist occupied government, Zog, is a white supremacist conspiracy formula claiming the US government is controlled by Jews. Kasparian does not use the acronym and repeatedly says she is talking about Israel rather than Jews. Version 1, therefore, does not claim conscious adoption of Zog ideology. It does find structural resemblance, especially after the December, quote, Jewish lobby statement removes the clean separation between Israel control and Jewish control rhetoric. So dossier B verdict, confirmed recurrent hidden control rhetoric. So this is recurrent. There is a pattern forming here. Occupied/controlled language is not dispositive in isolation, but becomes strong cumulative evidence when paired with the explicit, quote, Jewish lobby statement and the later, quote, Goyim formula. All right, dossier C, the Goyim are waking. The February 2026 post. In an X exchange defending Tucker Carlson's anti-war posture, Kasparian wrote the core formula, quote, the Goyim are waking, with profanity, and then refused to apologize the following day. JTA and Mediate preserved the sequence contemporaneously. Quote, Goyim versus the phrase as a whole. Goy / quote, Goyim is an ordinary Hebrew / Yiddish term for non-Jews in many contexts and is not inherently anti-Semitic. The classification turns on the phrase construction and surrounding discourse, not on the dictionary meaning of the word. I just wanted to quickly say hi to Thomas and Perry. Thanks for being with me, guys. We are going through, we're going through Anna Kasparian today.
Sounds good. Yeah, I tried keeping up with the YouTube video last night, but there was a 15-second delay or so, so I'll just give my word based on what you're saying throughout the discourse.
Cool. All right. ADL's hate symbol database identifies, quote, the Goyim no / shut it down as an anti-Semitic catchphrase associated with alt-right / white supremacist communities, historically used to suggest that non-Jews are awakening to secret Jewish manipulation of media, banks, or governments. Why context strengthens rather than weakens the concern. A person could theoretically quote or parody the formula while condemning it. Kasparian did not present it as a warning about anti-Semitism. She deployed it affirmatively during a dispute over Israel, Jewish accusations of anti-Semitism, and American political control. By February 2026, she had already said, quote, the Jewish lobby does control the U.S. This chronology materially increases the probability that the phrase activates its established conspiratorial meaning, even if Kasparian subjectively understands her target as Zionists rather than Jews. Let's look at the counter context. Her next day defense again directs anger toward Israel and, quote, Israelis and their supporters, not Jews in general. She has also publicly praised Jewish anti-Zionists. That counter evidence should constrain motive inference. It does not erase the content level fact that, quote, Goyim are waking is a historically coded Jew / non-Jew conspiracy formula rather than an Israel / non-Israel distinction. Dossier C verdict. This is confirmed coded anti-Semitic rhetoric with high confidence. The finding is based on phrase provenance plus Kasparian's own preceding control rhetoric, not on the mere use of the word Goyim. Okay, so we have another confirmed coded anti-Semitic rhetoric piece here from Anna Kasparian. Hello, everyone. Make sure you smash that like button, share the stream. Good to see you this evening. I almost spilled my water. How's Link doing there along the journey? Oh, there's one of those evil chickens. Better not slice it. Hopefully the stream is running nice and clear for you guys. I did change a few of my settings, but Dossier D, Israelis, quote, God's chosen people and collective essentialization. August 6, 2025, shift from government to population. The first half of the TYT clip attacks Netanyahu, Israeli policy, settlements, U.S. support, and the Israeli government. At roughly 6 minutes and 2 seconds, Kasparian changes grammatical target and addresses, quote, any Israelis watching. Quote, it's not because you're Jewish. It's because you slaughter innocent people. It's because you think you're God's chosen people. She later says, quote, you guys slaughter people, steal land, think they are better than others, and feel entitled to U.S. tax dollars. The important forensic feature is not the intensity of her moral condemnation. It is the movement from government/IDF conduct to a population level psychological and theological essence. Mitigating evidence inside the same clip. Kasparian twice says hostility is, quote, not because Israelis are Jewish, and explicitly notes that many Jews worldwide oppose Israel. She also says that earlier in the war, she could separate a country from its government. Those statements materially weaken an inference that she consciously means Jews whenever she says Israelis. Why, quote, chosen people changes the category. The phrase invokes a specifically Jewish theological concept. Jewish chosenness is not straightforwardly a racial or moral superiority doctrine. Mainstream formulations commonly describe covenant, religious obligation, or vocation. Kasparian's construction uses chosenness as evidence of collective superiority while directly addressing Israelis as a group. That moves the rhetoric beyond merely calling a state criminal or racist. Blood libel precision. Version 1 of this report does not call this a literal blood libel. Classical blood libel concerns accusations that Jews ritually murder non-Jews, especially children, for religious purposes. Kasparian's argument concerns alleged wartime killing. The better classification is collective demonization and religious essentialization with the anti-Jewish resonance. Dossier D verdict. Confirmed collective/religious essentialization. Strong cumulative anti-Semitism evidence, not a standalone literal blood libel finding. So we have strong cumulative anti-Semitism evidence, but not a standalone literal blood libel finding. Dossier E, Nazi inversion and, quote, modern day Nazis. Direct wording. In the August 6th TYT segment, Kasparian says the United States is, quote, aiding and abetting modern day Nazis, and identifies the current Israeli government as the referent. On August 25th, while responding to an accusation, she clarifies that she meant IDF members committing war crimes and the Israeli government, then says she stands by the, quote, modern-day Nazis formulation. Framework split. IHRA expressly lists comparing contemporary Israeli policy to Nazi policy as an illustrative example that may constitute anti-Semitism when context supports it. JDA and Nexus do not treat every Nazi analogy to Israel as automatically anti-Semitic. They require broader context and focus more heavily on anti-Jewish stereotyping, collective blame, or classic trope activation. Why this dossier is supporting, why this dossier is supporting, not necessary. Why this dossier is supporting, not necessary. The report does not need to win the contested debate over IHRA's Nazi comparison example. Removing every Nazi analogy leaves the, quote, Jewish lobby statement, quote, Goyim formula, repeated, quote, occupied/controlled rhetoric, collective chosenness rhetoric, and hidden blackmail thesis. This makes the final finding more robust than one built around Holocaust inversion alone. So the Dossier E verdict, from an IHRA perspective, direct illustrative hit. From the JDA/Nexus perspective, framework dependent. Important supporting evidence, but not necessary to the version 1 person level conclusion. Dossier F, Epstein, Israeli government, and blackmail system claims. Okay, April 9th, 2026, causal escalation. On the Megyn Kelly show, Kasparian argues that Israel exercises unusual influence over U.S. policy. She says the Israel lobby is part of the explanation and that blackmail is part of it. At roughly 1 hour, 5 minutes, and 4 seconds, she adds, quote, I think that there is an actual system in place to blackmail people in positions of power to carry out the best interests of Israel. And again, this was on the Megyn Kelly show, April 9th, 2026. She cites reporting on Epstein's relationships and says investigators drew direct links to the Israeli government. The transcript then reflects a categorical assertion that Epstein was working for the Israeli government, followed by her statement that she will keep speaking what she regards as the truth. Let's separate the factual ladder. Epstein had extensive relationships with powerful political and business figures. That's established. Epstein had important relationships with Israeli figures, including former Prime Minister Barak. That's established. Released documents can justify investigation of intelligence links or surveillance arrangements. Legitimate subject of inquiry. Epstein was definitively an Israeli intelligence asset, not established by the public record reviewed here. Israel operated a systematic Epstein-based blackmail apparatus to control U.S. leaders, not established by the public record reviewed here. That apparatus explains U.S. policy toward Israel, not established. External reality check. Reuters reported in February 2026 that speculation had linked Epstein to Russia, Israeli, or U.S. intelligence, but no definitive proof had surfaced linking him to any intelligence agency. That does not make every intelligence hypothesis false. It prevents the categorical, quote, system claim from being treated as established fact. Anti-Semitism relevance. An evidence-based report proving a Mossad operation would not become anti-Semitic merely because Israel is involved. The relevant problem is the repeated presentation of an inadequately established secret Israel-linked mechanism as the causal explanation for American government behavior. Adjacent to explicit Jewish control rhetoric, that is precisely the kind of hidden hand structure Nexus instructs analysts to distinguish from ordinary policy criticism. So, Dossier F verdict, factual status, core blackmail system thesis not established, anti-Semitism status, strong Nexus type hidden control concern in the cumulative context. So we're seeing here why it's important to understand the cumulative context, right? It's not enough to just go along and look at individual instances. How do the individual instances show a behavior pattern? Was it more early on in their career where they're dancing and dipping their toes into anti-Semitism? Or has it been frequent? Has it been contemporaneous? These are important things to consider when we're coming to well-reasoned, epistemically rigorous conclusions. Dossier G, 9/11, quote, dancing Israelis, and secondary trope risk items. What Kasparian said. In the August 25th response, Kasparian discusses the well-known, quote, dancing Israelis story and the detention of Israeli employees connected to urban moving systems. The episode has a genuine historical predicate. 5 Israeli nationals were detained and investigated after witnesses reported suspicious behavior on September 11th, 2001. The critical evidentiary question is what follows from that predicate. What the predicate does not establish. Detention, counterintelligence, investigation, unusual conduct, or possible intelligence interest does not by itself establish prior knowledge of the 9/11 attacks or Israeli orchestration. Version 1 of this report therefore separates, quote, the incident happened from stronger conspiracy conclusions. Kasparian's treatment tends to compress that distinction and is best classified as conspiracy amplification / overreach rather than a dispositive anti-Semitism item. Children and money formulation. Contemporary reporting also preserved a Kasparian formulation directed at an Israeli interlocutor, combining accusations of killing children with shaking us down for money. The underlying predicates, civilian deaths in Gaza and U.S. funding for Israel, are real political subjects. The wording, nevertheless, combines historically sensitive child killing and money extraction motifs. Because the direct source context is less complete than the core dossiers. Version 1 treats this as supporting cumulative trope resonance, not as a literal blood libel finding. Why these items are non-dispositive. Both items can be removed entirely. The core behavioral result remains. Keeping them at lower weight is methodologically important because reputational reports lose reliability when every controversial Israel comment is forced into the strongest possible anti-Semitism category. So dossier G verdict. 9/11 material, factual predicate is real. Stronger foreknowledge implication is, of course, not established. It's a conspiracy theory that has no causal line drawn to it, at least to date. Child / money rhetoric supporting trope resonance only. Neither item is needed for the final label. The final label being anti-Semite. Okay. What up, folks? Good evening. Yes, Shabbat tonight. Shabbat Shalom. Wow, Travis is a Jew. No, I'm not. Unfortunately, I was not chosen. What up, everyone? Dossier H, Larry Ellison / quote, happy merchant visual allegation. The allegation. Critics argued that a hand-rubbing gesture Kasparian made while discussing billionaire Larry Ellison resembled the anti-Semitic, quote, happy merchant caricature. By the way, if anyone wants to know what the happy merchant caricature looks like, just watch Dave Farina's recent, what am I calling that? I guess propaganda, misinformation video. He threw a happy merchant caricature in that video with devil horns and all the bells and whistles. The context. A Jewish billionaire, money, media power, and influence makes the visual resemblance legitimately worth scrutinizing. Kasparian's response. On October 20th, 2025, Kasparian said she had seen the image online, but did not know it was called the, quote, happy merchant meme, and denied intentionally reproducing it. She said her target was Ellison as a specific individual, not Jews. The program then played a broader context in which she again rejected conflating a state or a billionaire with Jewish people generally. I think we should watch this. Should we watch it? Happy Merchant, Anna Kasparian. Happy Merchant. Oh yeah, it's this, right? Yeah.
Like, yes, we're going to surveil everybody. Everyone will be on their best behavior. Yes, you're a freak. You're a total creep.
Okay.
All right. Like, yes, we're going to surveil everybody. Everyone will be on their best behavior. Yes, you're a freak. You're a total creep.
Wowzers. Yeah, I remember people passing that around. Okay. Evidentiary limit. Visual similarity does not establish intent, of course, and anti-Semitic caricature can be reproduced knowingly, unknowingly, coincidentally, or through generic villain/body language conventions. Without stronger evidence of deliberate imitation, the item cannot bear substantial weight in a personal level finding. So dossier H verdict, ambiguous visual/intent not established, contextual only. Version 1 would remain unchanged if this incident were removed from the record. Dossier I, Norman Finkelstein, admiration, affinity, and normalization. Folks, we seem not to be able to escape Mr. Finkelstein. He just keeps coming up. It's like he is controlling everything and directing everything towards himself. Direct praise of Norman Finkelstein by Anna Kasparian. During the February 4th, 2026 TYT interview with Michael Rechtenwald, that's a name, Kasparian lists Jewish anti-Zionist figures as evidence that anti-Zionism does not entail hatred of Jews. At approximately 1 hour, 41 minutes, and 8 seconds, she says Jeffrey Sachs is, quote, amazing, and then says the same of Finkelstein. Interesting. Favorite episode evidence. In her May 28th, 2026 conversation with Candace Owens, Kasparian says by the way, that's a transcript we're going to run today. I want to hear what was discussed in that conversation because Candace Owens is on our list for people to look into with regards to anti-Semitism. So in her conversation with Candace Owens, Kasparian says she appreciates Owens's willingness to host figures such as Norman Finkelstein and Bassam Youssef, describing those appearances as among her favorite episodes. This establishes more than incidental awareness. She actively consumes and values Finkelstein's commentary. What admiration proves and what it does not. Admiring a controversial scholar, well, by the way, Finkelstein, through all of our work we've been doing in the past month here, Finkelstein has been demonstrated, and I feel with high confidence that he is an explicit anti-Semite. The evidence is just so overwhelming. Like you can see it in one episode of his work, but obviously you wouldn't want to. The reason is because of how frequent the pattern is in like one episode. Let's say the Hassan Piker appearance was just baffling. But if you look at all the other work, it's just anti-Semitism after anti-Semitism after anti-Semitism after anti-Semitism. And it's just, he's explicit about it. He also tries to drag other people into it. Like there were even moments in the Hassan Piker conversation where Hassan Piker was like, "Oh no, but remember that I don't think any people are a monolith," or like he was kind of trying to slow him down to tame that wild beast that Norm Finkelstein seems to be. So what admiration proves and what it does not. Admiring a controversial scholar is not equivalent to endorsing every statement that scholar has ever made, of course. Finkelstein has a large corpus spanning international law, Gaza, the Holocaust, academic freedom, and U.S. politics. Association alone would be an invalid route to a person-level anti-Semitism label. I have to say, of all of the intellectuals and PhDs I've looked into in my life, Norm Finkelstein has a PhD in political science. He is the perfect example why everyone who's going for a political science degree, you must pair that degree with a philosophy degree that will allow you to garner a basic harnessing of logic and classical logic, because Norm Finkelstein is a horrible thinker. His reasoning, like he modal possibility is being turned into plausibility. He's saying things like, so given these things, which are usually misinformation, given these things, there's only one possible conclusion. And of course, there's not only one possible conclusion. for the for the propositions he's making. If you want to see a specific example of great detail of Norm Finkelstein's horrible thinking and in general, and his explicit anti-Semitism, you can go to pang-burn.com/analysis and click on the document that's freely available there that breaks down the Hassan and Finkelstein conversation. I'm going to be releasing a much larger report. The one I have is about 100 pages of Norman Finkelstein's journey as a thinker. And it really puts into crystal clear view that he is one of the most hardcore public figure anti-Semites that I've ever come across. Like when I have my system try to match and measure him against other people, we start seeing him getting matched against people who are openly white supremacists and they will say openly that they hate Jews and things like that. So yeah, it's a big problem when I see people like Anna Kasparian, people like Hassan Piker, people like Kyle Kalinske propping up this individual as someone who should be listened to, really about anything based on my very deep studying of this individual so far. Yeah, he gets some things right, but it's flabbergasting how many things he gets just factually incorrect. The amount of misinformation he spreads about Israel-Palestine is unbelievable. I would assume, I don't know this, I wouldn't claim to know this, but I believe that some of the misinformation that I'm hearing that is very common between people like Anna Kasparian, Dave Farina, Hassan Piker, I think it's reasonable to believe that he is the source of some of this, at least. But I will want to build a separate report to show Norm Finkelstein the admiration he gets from all of these people who seem to be engaging in anti-Semitism or are now demonstrated to be an anti-Semite in ways that they don't realize that Norm Finkelstein is a hardcore, explicit anti-Semite because they're either ignorant or deluded on what anti-Semitism actually is. Like there are people out there that think that you need to prove intent in someone's mind in order to demonstrate anti-Semitism. There's this softening of anti-Semitism that I am just baffled by. And, I've been out of this issue for a good chunk of time with what's been going on in my life, but the Dave Farina video kind of sparked me to attention on this, and I am just baffled with what people are getting away with on platforms like YouTube. What's the other one? Not Kick, but Kick as well, but the other one that people game on. I know you guys know what it is, but I'm just baffled by it. Oh, we got a massive super chat. Matthew, I really, really do appreciate that. Thank you so much. $200 super chat from Matthew. That literally covers diapers for a month for my children. So I really do appreciate that. Thank you so much. It says, thank you for calling out the progressives. Much appreciated, and hope there's more to come. I'm matching what Mini Minuteman gave to Professor Dave, who apparently made thousands in super chats off of his recent hate video. I really appreciate that. I think that was a very strange posture by someone like Mini Minuteman to support Dave's video, where Mini Minuteman has this reputation of being someone who takes science and evidence very seriously, takes misinformation very seriously. And yet Mini Minuteman was under Dave's video going, right on, man. Awesome stuff, dude. It's just baffling to me that someone who's supposed to be a science communicator, just like Dave himself, are sucked into this propaganda. But I really do appreciate that, Matthew, from the bottom of my heart. Thank you very much. Yeah, exactly. That's right. Someone said, anyone who thought Pang wasn't going to read the super chat is an anti-Semite. Yeah, all of you into the boiler. There you go. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Thank you, Matthew. Truly. So the connection becomes more relevant only when three conditions, we're talking about the connection to Norman Finkelstein, what admiration proves and what it does not. The connection becomes more relevant only when three conditions converge. Number one, Kasparian affirmatively praises him. Number two, she treats him as an authority within an anti-Zionist political coalition. And three, she independently reproduces similar hidden control structures in her own speech. Even then, his rhetoric remains contextual evidence, not borrowed guilt. So, connection rating. Is there evidence of public admiration from Anna Kasparian with regards to Norman Finkelstein? Yes, there is. This is confirmed. What about ideological affinity on Israel/Zionism? This is supported. What about consumption/promotion of his appearances? This is confirmed. What about formal collaboration? That's not established. What about personal friendship? Not established. Financial relationship? Not established. Mutual intellectual alliance? Not established. Later evidence is publicly dismissive from Finkelstein. Okay, so we'll look at that. Dossier J, Rechtenwald/Anti-Zionist America PAC and the Finkelstein Bridge. Kasparian actively tests the boundary. The Rechtenwald interview is stronger evidence that mere platforming, because Kasparian explicitly raises a prior post in which Rechtenwald referred to a, quote, Jewish elite that, quote, must be physically removed. Her willingness to confront this is exculpatory. She recognizes that anti-Zionism can become anti-Jewish hostility and asks what is meant. Rechtenwald's explanation, Rechtenwald calls the phrase a joke based on a libertarian meme, then says his intended target was what Finkelstein calls the, quote, Jewish supremacist billionaire class, which Rechtenwald says is running the country. Kasparian responds, quote, no, I get what you're saying, and immediately asks whether the PAC has spoken with Finkelstein. The Finkelstein recruitment question, at approximately 1 hour and 44 minutes, 57 seconds in the Rechtenwald interview, Kasparian asks whether Anti-Zionist America PAC has contacted Finkelstein and whether he is interested. Rechtenwald says they have reached out but have not been able to contact him, and that they would welcome him on the board and value his advice and knowledge. So Kasparian is, explicitly promoting Finkelstein as an authority, as someone who should be listened to. Forensic interpretation. This does not show Kasparian recruiting Finkelstein herself, nor that Finkelstein joined or coordinated with the PAC. It does show that after hearing a, quote, Jewish supremacist billionaire class explanation, Kasparian treats Finkelstein as a natural and desirable intellectual participant in the project. The normalization weight is therefore medium, more than passive silence, less than explicit endorsement of every premise. So the Dossier J verdict here, confirmed ideological/network affinity, no formal Finkelstein PAC link established. The strongest evidentiary value lies in the sequence of challenge, narrowed Jewish power explanation to acceptance, enough to proceed to Finkelstein recruitment question. Dossier K, Finkelstein rhetoric in context and reciprocal asymmetry. Why Finkelstein's own wording matters contextually. Finkelstein has publicly used the phrase, quote, Jewish supremacist billionaire class. Of course, everyone who's been following our work, we hear that a lot from Finkelstein in interviews and published conversations about donor influence, universities, and public power, political power. TRT World's 2024 segment is explicitly titled around, quote, Jewish elites and their influence in the US. And a Columbia Political Review interview preserves the phrase in his own answer. The existence of the phrase does not resolve whether every underlying donor power claim is false. Wealthy named donors can exercise real power. The anti-Semitism issue is the aggregation of a Jewish class as the explanatory unit, especially when political control is attributed to it. Finkelstein himself has acknowledged in other interview that discussions of, quote, Jews and money can readily feed stereotypes while continuing to defend his substantive claim. Why Kasparian cannot simply inherit Finkelstein's statements? The report explicitly rejects the inference, quote, Finkelstein said X, Kasparian likes Finkelstein, therefore Kasparian believes X. Host praise is weak to moderate contextual evidence unless the host adopts the proposition. Here, the person-level case already exists independently from Kasparian's, quote, Jewish lobby sentence and related control rhetoric. The relationship is not clearly reciprocal. At a Sao Paulo book fair on June 4th, 2026, Folha de S. Paulo reported Finkelstein dismissing media figures, quote, like Anna Kasparian and Hassan Piker, as having the combined IQ of a brick. Oh, wow. Whatever one thinks of the insult, it is useful evidence against portraying Kasparian and Finkelstein as close collaborators or mutually admiring partners. So Dossier K verdict, Finkelstein connection, intellectual admiration and ideological affinity confirmed, close personal or formal relationship not established, reciprocal admiration is contradicted by at least one 2026 public remark, but Kasparian is and continues to signal Norm Finkelstein, who is an explicit anti-Semite, to the world as someone who should be listened to. I'm just going to fill up my water. I'll be right back. Stay right there. What's Link doing? Ooh, we're getting far in this adventure. Look how many hearts we have now. We have 8. We have 9 hearts. I love it. Perry and Thomas, you have the mic for like 30 seconds.
Okay.
What's up, T-Dog?
Zelda, nothing. Just sitting here looking at chat, watching Zelda Save the Princess.
Any brain dead comments? I just got out of the shower.
Read some. Let's see what we got here. Not even going to name names. Finkelstein is an anti-white, Gentile bigot and Jewish supremacist communist. All right. These kind of religion people voting to take the guardrails off are the issue. Okay. Sorry. Some of this is weirdly worded. My bad. Finkelstein can't even speak or read Hebrew or Arabic. Yes, Donman said it last night. He hasn't done any original research. He maliciously used tons of footnotes out of context to spin narratives. Yeah, watch that episode last night. You'll see how much narratives he's spinning. That's the next one. In the midterms, if the midterms don't get these words. Oh, I'm not going to say that one. If they don't get screwed by Trump, then the left is going to have real control of Congress. Interesting.
Well, I heard some of the analysis on Kasparian.
Yeah, me too.
When I was in the car, this language of, and it seemed like she hedged some of it. Like she mentioned that there were Jews who critique Israel. The government is different than all Israelis, and that's good. But she also, according to the transcript, says like these guys or you people.
Isn't that fun? Generalizations to an entire group of people as if they are a monolith.
I said this last night, but the fundamental crux and source of the majority of bigotry. Notice how I say the majority and not all, and make the exact mistake. Is overgeneralizing. You know, all black people do X. All Asians are Y. And you know, it's just it's hard to determine whether it's just bad epistemology or if it's, you know, a good kid caught in the wrong crowd and they're getting fed just bullshit by their parents, by their peers. but break free of overgeneralizing people.
Yes, it's a lot of things different, like we talked about, and then I'm going to hand it back to Travis. It's a lot of different things, like we talked about last night. It's a field, right? So much context around ignorance and bad epistemics and where you were raised and all of these different cultures and all of this, when really it's about how we know what we know. And what Travis and all of us are trying to do is let people know that there are better ways to go about that. And the more that we generalize anything, facts, our narratives, the symbolism that we tell each other, everything, that is going to create a lower resolution version of reality, and we will be able to less likely meet it honestly and with as much care and competence as we can. Back to you, Travis.
Yeah, well said. Well said. The lack of, well, yeah, the monolithicity is a poison, I've noticed, in how people think about geopolitical issues, how people think about groups of people. It's like, yeah, people do the same thing. It's like, yeah, it's like, I mean, I'm not saying the blacks in general, but I'm saying that black culture. Like, they'll say things like this, and it's just like what are we doing here? Why do we feel, I think it's an epistemic issue. And of course, epistemology and ethics is not completely separate from each other. But yeah, there's an ethical component to it. Like, shouldn't that be stopping us in our tracks and being like, I'm making over generalizations here. Maybe I should focus on specificity, because there is wisdom in specificity, but you need to have good sound epistemic standards in order to be able to get to that position, to learn to know that there is wisdom and specificity. So it's yeah, I mean, I agree with Daryl Davis on a lot of this stuff, where it really does start with education. We have to do better in how we educate the public, how we educate our kids with regards to bigotry.
And also how Daryl didn't judge people for their ignorant failures. And
Exactly.
allowed them to be fallible and learn and change and grow. Because that's how we do it. That's how we get to better epistemics together.
Yeah, and it's and when I release a video saying so-and-so is an anti-Semite, that doesn't mean they have to be an anti-Semite forever. It just means that that's what the data, that's what the evidence is showing, that there is a pattern of anti-Semitic behavior that justifies the label of anti-Semite. I don't want that to crush anyone when they see that. I want people to use that as a moment of reflection, to be like, okay, maybe I don't agree with everything Travis has determined here or found here. But obviously, when I look at the evidence, the collection of it, when I look at the standards of anti-Semitism as determined by the JDA, Nexus, IHA, all these different organizations, something I am doing is crossing the line, and there is a pattern of me crossing the line. And I think it's important for them to recognize that pattern. Someone said, if I said you have a pattern of anti-Black racism, you would disagree, I bet. Yeah, I would disagree. I would, generate your own report. If you want to create a report showing how I have a pattern of anti-Black racism, send the report to me. If it is based on high resolution epistemic standards and full demonstrations, then I will change my ways, because I would not want to be those things. I would not want to be those things. All right. We're to the factual reliability stress test. Anti-Semitism classification becomes more reliable when ordinary factual disputes are separated from trope analysis. The table below tests predicates that matter to the strongest control/conspiracy claims. Let's look at the claims. Pro-Israel money has major electoral influence. That's supported. FEC records documents substantial independent expenditures. This makes specific lobbying criticism legitimate. Quote, Israel controls the United States. This is overstated, non-falsifiable as stated. Real influence does not establish categorical control of a pluralistic state. America is literally, quote, occupied by Israel/Israelis. False literally. This is rhetorical. No foreign occupation exists. This is metaphorical control rhetoric. AIPAC pressure can alter political incentives. Of course, this is supported. Political spending, endorsements, donor pressure, and primary challenges can matter. By the way, if you think AIPAC is doing anything illegal, you should send in your findings to government officials. My understanding is AIPAC is working well within the law. If you're angry that AIPAC is able to operate the way that they operate, you should get mad at the law, not at AIPAC. Epstein had major Israeli political connections. That's supported. Relationships justify scrutiny. Does not by itself prove intelligence direction. Epstein definitively worked for Israeli intelligence. That's not established. Reuters found no definitive proof linking him to any intelligence service. Israel operates an, quote, actual system of Epstein-based blackmail controlling U.S. officials. That is not established. Missing causal bridge, authenticated orders, compromat, threats, operational files, or credible firsthand testimony. I just want to make sure I'm pronouncing this correctly. Okay, let's listen.
Welcome to this pronunciation video. Today we will be focusing on a new word that you might find challenging or intriguing. So let's dive into today's word. Kompromat, which means
compromat in Russian.
Let's say it all together. Kompromat.
Yeah, compromat. Hey, I'm trying to listen to this. Okay, now I want to see quickly meaning. Compromat means compromising, incriminating, or discrediting material gathered on a person. Oh, okay. I have compromat on them. Sorry, I just have to check one thing. Fantastic. Fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. Woohoo! There we go. Like this. Someone said AIPAC refuses to register their agents under FARA, which is a violation of the law. Let's see if that's true. Okay. Sorry, you guys lost your Ocarina screen. Is it still playing? Oh, there we go. Good. Sweet. Oh, it's dark out. Oh, am I seeing adult Link now? I am. He grew up. Hopefully you guys caught the, it's the Master Sword, right? All right, let's get back to this. Israel operates an, quote, actual system of Epstein-based blackmail controlling U.S. officials. That's not established. We already, we went through the compromat, threats, operational files, or credible firsthand testimony. All of that is missing. 5 Israelis were detained after suspicious 9/11 behavior. That's supported. It does not establish foreknowledge or orchestration. Jewish theology teaches collective racial supremacy via, quote, chosen people. This is misleading as a generalization. Mainstream Jewish understandings of chosenness are not reducible to racial superiority. Finkelstein uses Jewish supremacist billionaire class language confirmed relevant to Kasparian affinity, but not attributable to her absent adoption. The causal bridge test. Influence claims are often built from many individually real facts, donations, lobbying, access, ideological affinity, military cooperation, donor threats, media ownership, or relationships with Epstein. A covert control thesis requires an additional bridge showing that those facts from a coordinated mechanism that causes the claimed outcome. These facts fit or quote, these facts fit my theory is not equivalent to, quote, these facts establish my theory. Why factual reliability matters to anti-Semitism. A prejudice trope can be factually true in a particular case. Classification does not turn on falsity alone, but when the trope specifically alleges secret control, unsupported certainty becomes central. Repeatedly, interpreting U.S. policy through an unproven hidden control mechanism increases the plausibility that a pre-existing ideological template is doing explanatory work. We have some counter evidence and symmetry controls to go through, but first I want to get the transcript cooking from Anna Kasparian and Candace Owens. See if we can find this. 1.9 million views. Wow, 2 months ago. All right, this is pretty contemporaneous. Let's show transcript. Let me grab this bad boy. Hour and 25 minutes. It's not too long. 66 sheets of paper. That's an itty bitty transcript for what we're used to. Let's call it Candace Anna. Boom. And then I'm going to get it cooking. So someone said AIPAC refuses to register their agents under FARA, which is a violation of the law. This is just false. It's legally unsupported as stated. The claim AIPAC refuses to register their agents under FARA, which is a violation of the law, skips the most important legal question. Is AIPAC actually an, quote, agent of foreign principle under FARA? You do not become subject to FARA merely because you lobby aggressively for policies favorable to a foreign country. So here's the publication safe correction here. AIPAC is not registered under FARA, but that alone is not a violation of law. FARA registration would be required only if AIPAC satisfied the statutory test for acting as an agent of a foreign principle, such as operating at the direction or control of the Israeli government. AIPAC is registered under the Federal Lobbying Disclosure Act, and no current DOJ determination establishing that AIPAC is legally required to register under FARA was or has been identified. A related predecessor era organization, the American Zionist Council, was ordered by DOJ in 1962 to register after receiving funds from the Jewish Agency. But that historical episode does not by itself establish that modern AIPAC is violating FARA. So whoever said that, that is misinformation. You shouldn't believe that anymore. Okay. We're going to do our deep analysis of the Candace and Anna transcript. We'll also listen to some pieces from that, I think. For some reason, the game screen was not playing for you guys. Sorry about that. Travis, Jen Wink is a based mod for Hutch and others. Please consider if you need additional hands. Yeah, Jen, if you're interested, that would be great. All right. Okay, I think I should be able to send that now. There we go. And then let's get on. We're almost through this report here. So let's look at the counter evidence and symmetry controls. March 4th, Talmud response. When a viewer referenced offensive passages in the Talmud, Kasparian declined to extrapolate isolated text into a statement about what Jews believe. Around 1 hour and 58 seconds of the cited source, she says she is not a theologian and does not want to pull passages out and declare, quote, this is what they believe. She then tells viewers not to hate Jewish people and says Jews generally are not responsible for Israel's government. Explicit rejection of private Jew hatred. In the same segment, Kasparian says she has no hatred for Jewish people or the Jewish religion, describes Jewish Americans as fellow Americans, and calls hatred based simply on religion or ethnicity wrong. This is strong counter evidence against the psychological claim. Kasparian privately hates, or this is strong counter evidence against the psychological claim, quote, Kasparian privately hates Jews as Jews. April 27th distinction. Kasparian later says neither she nor Cenk attacks Jews, says, we'll be looking into Cenk Uygur tomorrow, by the way, says she has no issues with Judaism and frames her objection as a political ideology and state conduct rather than the Jewish population. Repetition makes this more probative than a one-off disclaimer issued only after controversy. Counter evidence inside inflammatory clips. Even in the August 6th, quote, chosen people segment, she says hostility is, quote, not because you're Jewish, and points to Jews who protest Israel. In the August 25th response, she repeatedly denies saying, quote, Jews, and condemns conflating Israeli actors with Jews worldwide. What this counter evidence can and cannot do. It meaningfully reduces the probability that her behavior is best explained by explicit, undifferentiated Jew hatred. It cannot make a confirmed Jewish control statement non-anti-Semitic. The coherent synthesis is that Kasparian may sincerely reject hatred of Jews while still reproducing anti-Semitic control and conspiracy structures in her political rhetoric. So counter evidence results: strong against subjective Jew hatred, insufficient to erase confirmed content level anti-Semitism. Intent and message classification move independently. Pattern analysis. Let's look at the pattern. Recurrence, independence, escalation, convergence. So independent episode test. Just make sure this is good. The strongest incidents are disputed across different settings. The Young Turks monologues, bracket August 2025 and February 2026, and bracket an X post, a Piers Morgan panel, a Megyn Kelly interview, and a separate X dispute. They are not one emotional rant or one edited clip. Independence substantially raises the evidentiary value of recurrence. Multifamily test. We have family, examples, and status. Jewish/Israel hidden control. Jewish lobby controls U.S. Israel/Israelis occupy/control America. This is confirmed and recurrent. Coded anti-Semitic language. Quote, the Goyim are waking. This is confirmed. Collective/religious essentialization. This is confirmed. Israelis addressed as slaughterers, invoking, quote, God's chosen people and superiority. Secret blackmail mechanism. Israel linked, quote, actual system, blackmailing powerful people, confirmed as claim, factual thesis unproven, Holocaust/Nazi inversion, Israeli government/IDF, quote, modern day Nazis, confirmed, framework dependent outside IHRA, and platforming/normalization, Finkelstein admiration, favorite episodes, PAC network discussion, confirmed contextual only, escalation sequence. The most revealing trajectory is semantic. The 2025 rhetoric begins with, quote, Israel and, quote, Israelis controlling or occupying America. By December, the noun becomes explicitly, quote, the Jewish lobby. By February, Kasparian deploys a Jew/non-Jew coded awakening formula. By April, a secret blackmail mechanism is described as a, quote, actual system. This is not proof of a hidden internal ideology. It is evidence of public rhetoric convergence. Convergence versus one frame dependence. A robust result should not collapse if one framework is rejected. Here, the explicit Jewish lobby statement aligns with broad anti-Semitism scholarship. Quote, Goyim are waking, has documented extremist provenance. The hidden control sequence maps to Nexus, and the Nazi analogy independently maps to IHRA. Multiple pathways converge on the same behavior level concern. Pattern result: recurrent plus independent plus multifamily plus escalating. This combination, rather than any single controversial Israel opinion, is what supports the person-level behavioral adjudication. Robustness/sensitivity analysis. Version 1 intentionally stress tests the conclusion by deleting evidence favorable to the prosecution. We have sensitivity test, evidence removed, and result. So if we remove Larry Ellison visual of the happy merchant inference, the behavioral label is still supported. This analysis does not require that to make the conclusion of this analysis. If we remove child/money secondary item, drops possible blood libel money resonance. This doesn't change the behavioral labels. Still supported. Remove all Finkelstein evidence. It doesn't change the behavioral label. Reject IHRA Nazi comparison example. It doesn't change the behavioral label. Treat all AIPAC criticism as legitimate. The behavioral label is still supported. Treat Epstein Israel intelligence hypothesis as open. Behavioral label is still supported. Use only Kasparian direct/near direct words. So like Jewish lobby, occupational/control, Goyim, chosen people, Nazi analogy, blackmail system. The behavioral label is still supported. Require explicit Jewish target. Retain only, quote, Jewish lobby plus Goyim coding and counter evidence. Act level anti-Semitism would be still established. Person level label remains supportable, but less overdetermined if we were to require explicit Jewish targeting. Why sensitivity analysis matters. Reputational investigations are especially vulnerable to, quote, pile-on logic. Once a thesis becomes emotionally attractive, analysts may treat every ambiguous item as confirmation. Sensitivity analysis asks whether the conclusion survives if the weakest evidence is presumed innocent. Here, by way of this demonstration relating to robustness/sensitivity analysis, here it does. Minimal sufficient set. The smallest high confidence set capable of supporting the pattern consists of 1, the Jewish lobby does control the US, 2, recurrent, quote, occupied/controlled by Israel/Israelis formulations, and 3, the Goyim are waking, and 4, the August 6th collective chosen people essentialization. The remaining dossiers increase context and robustness, but are not necessary. We have a section on alternative explanations here. Okay, alternative explanations. Hyperbolic anti-war polemic. Kasparian is an unusually forceful polemicist and often uses maximalist language. Hyperbole can explain why, quote, influence becomes, quote, control, or why government misconduct becomes, quote, Nazis. It does not fully explain why the category shifts to, quote, Jewish lobby, or why an established Jew/non-Jew conspiracy catchphrase is deployed. Intense anti-Israel hostility without anti-Jewish hostility. This explanation captures substantial evidence. Kasparian repeatedly says Jews are not Israel and appears genuinely angered by attempts to make Jews collectively responsible for the state. It is likely part of the psychological picture. Yet, content classification does not disappear when a speaker believes the target is political. Classic anti-Jewish tropes can be reproduced through Israel/Zionism rhetoric, especially where the speaker explicitly says, quote, Jewish lobby. Generalized conspiracism/institutional distrust. Kasparian may be prone to high confidence hidden mechanism explanations across topics. We see a lot of that in Candace Owens. If so, that reduces the specificity of any one Israel conspiracy as evidence of anti-Jewish motive, but generalized conspiracism can still instantiate anti-Semitic content when it adopts historically Jewish coded mechanisms. And we're looking at alternative explanations for this behavior. Foreign policy betrayal frame. Another explanation is nationalist. Kasparian sees pro-Israel policy as a betrayal of American sovereignty and therefore uses, quote, occupation language. The problem is that nationalist betrayal frames have historically been a common vessel for ethnic dual loyalty and control myths. The fact that a general mechanism can be non-anti-Semitic does not immunize a specific instance after, quote, the Jewish lobby is made the controlling agent. Most charitable integrated explanation. The strongest defense is that Kasparian consciously rejects Jew hatred, is intensely hostile to Israeli policy, sincerely believes pro-Israel money and pressure distort U.S. decision-making, and uses hyperbolic language without appreciating the historical freight of the tropes she has adopted. Version 1 treats this as plausible. It is compatible with, rather than fatal to, a behavior-based anti-Semitism classification. Match standard comparison to the Kalinsky analytic threshold. Do we want to look at this? Direct Jewish target. The Jewish lobby does control the U.S. Okay, well, this is in the report. If people want to use that and look at it, might be interesting to some. Steelman case for person level label. The December 4th statement is not an interpretation of, quote, Israel lobby rhetoric. Kasparian herself affirmatively says, quote, the Jewish lobby does control the U.S. The Jewish control statement is embedded in a months-long sequence of America being, quote, occupied and, quote, controlled by Israel or Israelis, making it harder to dismiss as one lexical slip. The, quote, Goyim are waking phrase belongs to an established anti-Semitic conspiracy vocabulary in which non-Jews awaken to hidden Jewish manipulation. Kasparian used it affirmatively and refused to apologize. The August 6 segment shifts from government criticism to Israelis collectively and invokes specifically Jewish chosenness as part of a superiority / murderousness characterization. The April 2026 blackmail thesis supplies a covert control mechanism asserted as an, quote, actual system, while definitive public proof remains absent. The Nazi comparison supplies an independent IHRA pathway. The label does not depend on it because other frameworks already capture separate content. The incidents occur across the Young Turks, X, Piers Morgan, and Megyn Kelly, reducing the probability that the pattern is an artifact of one editing context. Repeated denials of Jew hatred do not logically negate anti-Semitic content. Prejudice-relevant rhetoric can be reproduced, though negligence, ideological filtering, or a belief that, quote, Zionist / Israeli categories fully sanitize a classical trope. Requiring a confession of hatred would set an unrealistically high burden, rarely applied to other prejudice classifications. Strongest prosecution in one paragraph. Here we go. A publication does not need the Happy Merchant allegation, the 9/11 material, the child money formulation, or any Finkelstein association. Kasparian's own recovered words already show a recurrent sequence. Quote, Jewish lobby, control of the U.S., America occupied / controlled by Israel or Israelis, quote, Goyim awakening, collective chosen people superiority rhetoric, and an alleged blackmail system directing American officials. Under a behavior-based standard, this is sufficient to establish a recurrent anti-Semitic public rhetoric pattern. This is the Steelman case against the person level label. Kasparian repeatedly and explicitly says Jews are not responsible for the Israeli government and tells audiences not to hate Jewish people. She refuses to generalize from Talmud passages to Judaism. I was trying to get a crack out of my back. Or Jewish belief, and states that she has no hatred for Jewish religion. Many of her underlying political predicates are real. Substantial pro-Israel political spending, U.S. military assistance, Israeli civilian harm controversies, donor pressure, settlement violence, and real Epstein relationships with Israeli figures. Quote, Israeli is a nationality, not a synonym for Jew. Population level hostility toward Israelis can be national prejudice or wartime demonization rather than anti-Semitism in the narrowest definition. IHRA's Israel / Nazi example is controversial. JDA / Nexus are intentionally more protective of anti-Zionist speech. Foreign intelligence agencies really do conduct covert operations and blackmail. Discussing Mossad or Israeli influence is not inherently anti-Semitic. Her rhetorical style is hyperbolic across political topics, which reduces the specificity of, quote, control language as evidence of anti-Jewish motive. Finkelstein admiration is not endorsement of every Finkelstein statement, and the available record does not establish a close personal or formal relationship. The strongest motive inference consistent with the record may be militant anti-Israel nationalism rather than hatred of Jews. Strongest defense in one paragraph. The strongest defense is that Kasparian is an intensely anti-Israel, anti-war polemicist who sees pro-Israel lobbying as a sovereignty problem, frequently speaks in maximalist metaphors, and has become receptive to conspiratorial explanations of U.S. policy. She simultaneously and repeatedly rejects anti-Jewish hatred, praises Jewish anti-Zionists, and refuses theological generalizations. On this view, her rhetoric is reckless and historically insensitive, but her actual psychological target remains the Israeli state and its political supporters. Version 1 accepts that this defense materially limits claims about private intent. It does not sufficiently explain away the explicit, quote, Jewish lobby control statement or the coded, quote, Goyim phrase. Okay, that was the defense. So what should the final adjudication be? Before I read this, I actually want to see where my system's at with regards to the Anna and Candace Owens conversation. Let's take a look. It should be done. Wow. Oh, still playing. Okay. It's all good. How's everyone doing? How's Thomas, Perry? You guys still alive? Don Don? Yo.
Hello. Got back from Shabbat.
Shabbat.
We're here and ready to generalize at your command, sir.
Oh, great. We're doing more
Fantastic.
generalizations.
Yep. That's what we're all about
it
here.
Sounds like Anna is doing a better job than someone like Norm Finkelstein at nuancing these things.
Of course.
And so
yeah,
I know
this
crazy
is
tweet she meant about like basically about killing all Jews in Israel. He's got to find it. I'll share it with you.
Yeah, share me what you have, Don, that would be relevant to this report. Everyone, hello. It is Friday evening. It is almost 9 p.m. here in Oaxaca, Mexico, coming to you live worldwide on the tube that is for you. What up? Make sure you smash that like button, by the way. Oh, I'm getting feedback from someone in my chat. They are new to Discord. This is their first time. Okay.
See, I'm not lighting up when you say that, but I feel like it's me. So I don't know. I'll just take blame.
It is you, Barry.
Yeah, as long as the YouTube stream should be muted when you're unmuted. So, anyways, we will soon have the Candace and Anna transcript finish, and we'll have that audit ready. Don's cooking up some more information, and let's check on Link quickly. Where's Link? He is he's in the castle, right?
I think
he
so.
is.
I don't game entirely, but I think so. Yeah. Oh,
he has to use the hook shot on these guys. Yep.
Oh, yes.
Man, the hook shot. Oh, how exciting was it, everyone, to find the hook shot? For those of you who have never,
unbelievable. Every power up in Legend of Zelda feels like a whole new world. Like I just sing Aladdin to myself.
Man, every time I can still hear the music of opening at one of the big chests. Like when you go into a room and you see there's a big chest there and you're just like, oh, it's a big chest. I know it's going to be something important. Yeah, someone said Anna just did an interview with Owen Benjamin as well. Okay, let me finish reading the report and then we'll check all this other stuff. And the other information we audit will be used in the version 2 report that will be published tomorrow publicly. So final adjudication. This is the final version 1 finding. Again, version 2 published tomorrow. On the public record reviewed through August 21st, 2026, it is supportable to describe Anna Kasparian as an anti-Semite under a behavior-based / public rhetoric definition. She repeatedly engages in or propagates anti-Semitic control, coded conspiracy, collective essentialization, and Nazi inversion rhetoric across independent episodes. Confidence here is high. This does not establish private hatred of Jews and does not classify ordinary anti-Zionism, AIPAC criticism, Gaza advocacy, or opposition to Netanyahu as anti-Semitic by default. So, as it stands right now, I think we have demonstrated to a high degree of confidence based on high resolution, sound epistemic standards that are grounded in correspondence criteria of truth, empiricism, science as a way of knowing, that Anna Kasparian currently is an anti-Semite. I say currently because that doesn't have to be written in stone. I mean, it isn't written in stone. We are all in a state of becoming in this human journey, and she can change this pattern. But there is a pattern of evidence here based on her own behaviors that causes her for it to be reasonable to apply the label of anti-Semite to her. So if she wants to become a better woman, she would stop with this anti-Semitism. She would stop with this pattern that leads to her, justifiably being called an anti-Semite. So, and what kind of anti-Semite we've been tiering these anti-Semites into different categories. I think Anna is right there with Kyle Kalinske and Hassan Piker is like that low resolution anti-Semite that they understand that anti-Semitism is wrong. They identify other things as anti-Semitism, so they have a way of discerning, but the way they are discerning anti-Semitism is flawed and incorrect. There is a connection with all of these people to admiring Norman Finkelstein, who is an explicit anti-Semite, a level 3, a high resolution anti-Semite. What I'm doing with all of these reports, I'm going to start building much larger webs from these empirical reports and see how these webs connect. It might not just be Norman Finkelstein, but I'm seeing a lot of sycophantry and promotion of Norman Finkelstein, who is an explicit anti-Semite. And at this point, I think it's reasonable to believe that this inability to see their own anti-Semitic patterns of behavior could be connected to what they're learning from someone like Norm Finkelstein. So this is a big problem. At the end of the report here, you're going to see a publication safe language to language, public safe language and language to avoid, things that you shouldn't be saying, things that are publication safe language attributions that are based on the evidence. We have a what would change the conclusion section. We have limitations. This report was constructed to investigate anti-Semitism allegations. We have a master claim matrix here. We have a quote and timestamp ledger that will correspond with all the information we were reading earlier. We have Appendix C, which is held/rejected internet claims. So we have things like people say Kasparian openly says she hates Jews. The version 1 status is to reject this. Direct counter evidence repeatedly denies Jew hatred and distinguishes Jews from Israel. We have people saying online, everything Kasparian says about Israel is anti-Semitic. We are rejecting this. Ordinary policy, lobbying, war, settlement, and aid criticism can be legitimate. Kasparian literally used a medieval blood libel. The evidence does not support that. Child-killing rhetoric concerns war. Ritual murder predicate is absent. So there's this held/rejected internet claims. These held claims, I'm going to look at adjudicating. Actually, there's only one. It's the happy merchant gesture proves intentional anti-Semitic mimicry. This was a claim. I am going to adjudicate that as not direct evidence that she is necessarily embodying the happy merchant in that viral meme. Appendix D is the source hierarchy and bibliography. Here's the full bibliography here. Appendix E, final audit checklist. So this is just my system showing its work, and I like to see this work. So that's where we are with regards to this, to the issue relating to Anna Kasparian and anti-Semitism. She is an anti-Semite based on the evidence that we've adjudicated here today. I'm still waiting on the Candace transcript. Don, were you able to find what you were looking for?
Yeah, I found one thing that I'm looking for. I'll send it to you privately.
Okay.
Oh, it's a Facebook share. Let me see if I can find it.
We can do that.
Twitter.
I can do it on Facebook.
Yeah, it's a short little video that Canary Mission put together. But let me try to find the tweet. I remember it was a really egregious tweet, and I remember commenting on it, but I have to find exactly what it was.
Okay. Yeah, take your time.
We can put this one on for now. I think this one highlights a lot of I think it highlights that in the past, Anna and Cenk knew how to understand anti-Semitism, and now they're just ignoring the academic definition when it's convenient to them. But
right.
Put it up, you'll see.
Sorry, where is it?
I sent it to you in Pangburn.
DM? Oh, okay.
Yeah. DM on Discord.
I got it. Thank you.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, let's take a look. Facebook. Oh, I'm not logged on to Facebook. Oh, wait, but I can still watch. Here we go. Let's see. This
really
looks like
one responsible. Oh, who do you think is really the one responsible? They always say the Jews because they think, oh, they're the puppet masters. There's anti-Semitic tropes, etc. Right? And it's obvious that they control us. And now Trump is out here like a puppet. Yes, I said puppet, and you could suck it.
By the way, puppet master.
So this one I'm seeing Chank's talking a lot in it. Is that the right one, Don Don? Off the start?
Yeah, when Cenk starts talking,
Okay.
yeah, that's the right one.
Okay.
About Jewish financiers, okay?
Puppets for Israel. Puppet regimes, Israeli puppet.
An extremely offensive anti-Semitic post on Facebook. This is deeply, deeply anti-Semitic.
They control us. They control our government. Israel controls our government.
So get a load of the poster. It says, vote no on Matt Lesser, and it has a picture of him looking greedy with large eyes. So why put a money-grubbing picture of someone on a flyer like that?
Yes, we're gonna surveil everybody. Everyone will be on their best behavior. Yes.
Oh, you guys like your money. Abby, you can't get any more anti-Semitic than this.
Okay.
Owe me more money. You owe me more money. Give me money. Give me 310 billion isn't enough. The Jews own the media, right? So that's the anti-Semitic trope. This isn't control of our media by Israeli forces. The root of all of these theories is always the Jews control the world. That's the excuse the Israelis are using to control our.
One thing I'd like to point out to everyone watching this right now, and I'm not saying Don Don has done this, but he's provided this for particular reasons. But don't get sucked into thinking you are understanding what's going on in a situation with these propaganda like videos that are being cut together. Don't use these as primary sources. They aren't sources of deep study or deep understanding. They're low resolution media pieces, but they can be useful to see if particular statements were made by people. So let's get to the end of this.
Going and saying the Jews have been disloyal. It doesn't get any more anti-Semitic than that. Forces inside America that are loyal to Israel. Every single trope used to attack Jews in history, anti-human trash, demon spawn.
You think you're God's chosen people when you act like absolute demons.
Yeah, so a lot of these things that Anna Kasparian has said in this particular video, we have actually adjudicated in this report today.
To anti-Semitic attacks, there are real consequences to it. We live in a country that is ruled and controlled and manipulated by the nation state of Israel.
The media is often controlled.
We're gonna surveil everybody.
You owe me more money. Give me money.
Our country is occupied by the Israelis.
Puppets for Israel. Loyal to Israel.
They control us. They control our government.
You've manipulated all of our politicians. You bought them through AIPAC.
People as evil as this exist in this world.
Israel is the Jewish state.
Like, people as evil as this exist in this world. That little clip someone added there, there's just no context as to what Anna Kasparian is talking about there, right?
That is evil. Evil.
Every single one of them lies to you on purpose.
AIPAC is evil is just a normative, assessment. But like I say to people about AIPAC, because when I talk to people about AIPAC, they're often, it boils down to they're upset that organizations are allowed to have this level of influence on government, and that's a problem. That's a legal issue, a constitutional issue with the United States of America. So you should be directing that frustration towards lobbying, towards changing those laws. Again, it's not always the case, but often those conversations boil down to it not being AIPAC specific. But
Bitch.
Israel is single one of them lies to you on purpose.
No, I'm not gonna let you filibuster, bitch.
Israel is our top enemy.
Wow.
Enemy. Cut off the goddamn funding.
Okay, there's a lot of energy in that video.
Too much energy in that video.
Too much.
I think at the
Okay.
least it highlights that Cenk at least knows what the tropes of anti-Semitism are.
Cenk knows. We're going to be doing Cenk tomorrow, and Anna Kasparian knows based on the evidence of this analysis today. She seems to be good at identifying particular types of anti-Semitism, but this is one of those things where if you are influenced by someone like Norman Finkelstein, who has all of these explicitly anti-Semitic things that are constantly being repeated time and time again from him in these public appearances, and it starts becoming part of the culture that, oh yeah, he's a good guy with regards to Israel-Palestine, and he's a scholar, he's a political scientist, he's a PhD, and he's written books on this, and he studies it, and he's saying a lot of the same things that I'm feeling about this, and we don't stop to be like, yeah, but should we fact check him first? And then when we start fact checking Norm Finkelstein, holy effing shitballs, is he full of misinformation, full of poop, we should say, when it comes to up to the brim. His eyes are turning, depending what you've eaten that day. He ate a whole big bowl of beets, so his eyes are turning red. He's so full of poop.
Hank and Norm are constrained by modern day politics and the rhetoric that they use and the attention that they get from said rhetoric. And they get away with it. Now, this is a descriptive fact. This doesn't change the badness of it. But there's no philosophers seemingly in the modern day politique. You know, Cenk, of course, knows, as Don said explicitly, what the standards of anti-Semitism would be, and now all of a sudden he's turning a blind eye, whatever the saying is, and going on some double standard.
And that's going to be an important point for tomorrow, that like Cenk is sitting there with Anna Kasparian, and I'll also be digging into Cenk's relationship to Norm Finkelstein as well, because I've become very curious about that. The level of sycophantry that's unified across the people we have been investigating thus far. Dave Farina, Norm Finkelstein, Kyle Kalinske, Norm Finkelstein, Anna Kasparian, Norm Finkelstein, Hassan Piker, I'm your biggest fan, you're one of my heroes, Norm Finkelstein. So there's a
does Norm have any in his group that also push this agenda?
Say that again.
My apologies. I said, does Norm Finkelstein have anyone else in his group, in this so-called political science group, anybody else, that helps push this agenda around him?
That's what I want to look at when I have a master. Like he's kind of a bit of a lone wolf. That's my understanding, and that's just a generalized statement from me. But we're going to have a much clearer picture when I finish this 100-page master document on Norm Finkelstein that I'm creating right now. That's going to include his relationships, who are sympathetic to what he has to say, and also the people who dismiss Norm Finkelstein and say he's kind of a crackpot that spreads misinformation, which is consistent with the data, and also spreads anti-Semitism.
Yeah. What I know about Norm Finkelstein, he never got his PhD. I think the university got letters from other people, and they basically stopped it because of what they considered to be like anti-Semitism and stuff like that.
Right.
I know that happened to him. I know that he's not allowed to visit the state of Israel. He's not allowed to come into the country because of his connections with Hezbollah, I believe, like in the 80s or 90s. I'm not sure exactly what time. But he has a weird history around this. I don't think people generally agree with him. Even the person who he cites most in his books, which is, I think, Benny Morris, this is the person Destiny had a discussion with Norm Finkelstein with. It was Benny Morris, Destiny, against Finkelstein and some other guy. And Benny Morris is the guy that most people cite. Like Benny Morris even told Finkelstein, "You're not citing me correctly," and he was arguing with him over his interpretation of his own work. So
okay. Yeah, well, that'll be one to look at, definitely. The what's his name? The Lex Friedman debate that Don was just mentioning. So I have the information from the fact check and anti-Semitism audit from the Candace and Anna conversation. The result is important for the Anna Kasparian dossier. This interview adds several significant items that were not fully captured in the version 1 analysis. This is why we always do a version 2 after we go through this. It strengthens the behavioral pattern case, especially around inherited guilt, hidden foreign control, and conspiratorial Israel-centered causal reasoning. It also contains quite a lot that is factually true or substantially grounded, so the strongest report should not dismiss the interview wholesale. Of course, we wouldn't do that. So what's the overall verdict here? Ordinary political criticism of Israel. And let me just pull up this on the screen so people can see what we're talking about here.
All right, you guys, I am so excited. I have been saying, you've probably seen this all over online, that I have been dying to host Anna Kasparian because I feel like at the exact same time, her and I had perhaps a broader awakening about this left-right paradigm that is not serving the left or the right and is only serving the elites. It's how we are all.
So we're going to look at certain moments in this, but let's get a frame on Anna Kasparian here. Okay. So we are talking about the conversation between Anna Kasparian and Candace Owens now. Candace Owens is also on my list to do a full analysis with regards to anti-Semitism and misinformation. Oh, wow. I had a lot of notifications on X. I think Stephen Destiny shared my post that Kyle Kalinske is anti-Semitic.
Oh, really? Wait, I got to check this out. We also got a super chat, I think.
Oh, let's take a look. Ding, ding, ding. Thank you so much for the super chat by Heavens Feel. $5. Thank you so much. In Weimar Republic, communists used anti-Semitic language matching the NSDAP, more anti-capitalist-ish rhetoric. I find the parallels interesting. I'm going to adjudicate that comment. I really appreciate the comment. Everyone, the super chats go a long way for what we do at Pangburn. If you want to support me on an ongoing basis and projects like this, please consider becoming a channel member. Really appreciate the super chat. Thank you so much. So we are going to adjudicate this comment. Let's open one more fact-checking ledger here. Boom. Thank you kindly. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Let's look at the information. So the verdict is for the commenter who left a super chat. Again, thank you so much for the super chat. It is partly true, but matching the NSDAP is misleading. So there is a real and historically interesting overlap here, especially in anti-capitalist rhetoric. But the KPD and NSDAP were not equivalent in the role anti-Semitism played in their ideologies. So I'm going to fast forward to the strong historical formulation, and that is that during the Weimar Republic, elements of the KPD sometimes used explicitly anti-Semitic rhetoric, particularly by associating Jews with finance, speculation, and, quote, Jewish capital. This occasionally produced striking rhetoric overlap with the NSDAP's anti-Semitic anti-capitalism. However, anti-Semitism was foundational and racial to Nazi ideology in a way it was not to KPD doctrine. So describing the two parties as simply, quote, matching one another would be misleading. Okay, I want to get to this. Again, thank you for the super chat. We have a bunch of items to look at here. Okay. Factual exaggeration, sloppy causal inference. So there's going to be a frequent amount of factual exaggeration and sloppy causal inference from Candace Owens and Anna Kasparian. Conspiratorial reasoning, of course, is going to be strong. Anti-Semitic rhetoric by Candace Owens. Multiple strong examples. This is just giving me more incentive to do this Candace Owens deep dive. We will do Cenk Uygur tomorrow, and then I think we'll do Candace Owens after that. Candace Owens is pretty hot in the media right now. New anti-Semitism relevant rhetoric by Anna Kasparian. Yes, we have significant moments in this conversation, and this will be new evidence for the report. Direct Jew hatred from Kasparian, not established. Additional evidence supporting behavioral anti-Semitism finding for Kasparian. Yes, there is issues of high relevance here. Guys, make sure you're muted when you're not talking, please. If you could, that'd be awesome. Thank you. No worries. Finkelstein affinity is further confirmed in this conversation. Wow. Interesting. Make sure you guys smash that like button. Welcome. It is Friday night. I hope you're having a good one. Number one, Israel has carried out genocide. Well, we all know, everyone should know at this point, the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, has not determined what has happened in Gaza to be a genocide. The other organizations that have, like the UN Independent International Commission of Inquiry, these kinds of organizations, human rights organizations that have determined genocide, they're not in a position to adjudicate the counter evidence or things that Israel will present to the ICJ in what'll probably be 2030 when this trial actually is carried out at the International Court. So genocide has not been determined by the International Court, or other organizations have, but Israel will be handing over their counter evidence and making their counter arguments to the ICJ. They're not required to engage in any kind of that discussion, argumentation with these other organizations, with the UN Independent International Commission of Inquiry. So that's when people are committing to that, I see that as empirically, well, I should say epistemically and ethically premature and irresponsible, I would say. There's a quote here that, okay, that one's substantially true. We're trying to look at the errors here. Supported. Let's see. Okay, we have strong anti-Semitism relevant content here. And this is dealing with, at around 40 minutes, the major new Kasparian problem, inherited terrorist lineage. Okay, we're going to go to 40 minutes in this video. See if you guys can spot it. See if you can spot the issue.
That we're carrying out terror attacks against the Palestinians and Christians, because Armenians are overwhelmingly Christian, right? And so at that time, what my research showed me was that the Irgun, which is one of the 3 terrorist groups that formed Israel, was attacking the local communities there in Haifa, doing bombings and all sorts of crazy things. So like they fled genocide, went to Haifa, and then had to flee again. But luckily, they were able to go back to their homeland at that time, and they went back to Armenia, and that's where my mom was born.
And it's crazy because those terrorist groups, like, they then came to the United States, their children became executives, politicians. Like, these are what we are dealing with in media are the sons and the daughters of those terrorists. Make no mistake. I mean,
It's
this
crazy,
is
yeah.
the Emanuel family being one of them. Ram Emanuel, Ari Emanuel. How much power does that family have?
Do not trust that man.
But
Democrats.
their
I'm going to look right into I'm going to look into the
crazy.
camera right now. Do not trust him. He's putting out statements right now about we should really rethink our support to Israel. He's full of crap. Okay?
Absolutely not.
Yeah,
That
he
family was born
in the IDF. Like, no, don't trust him. Democrats need to distance themselves from these people. Like, they're not healthy for
But
us.
to be
for our
honest, I
country.
just think at the top it's all the same. I think the Epstein files had everyone in it. I think they have been that sort of global arms trafficking, human sex trafficking syndicate is running America and has been running America for.
All right, so let's go through this. After discussing pre-state Zionist armed organizations, Kasparian says the people she is dealing with in political/media are the sons and daughters of those terrorists. She emphasizes, let's see. This is substantially, Ram's, Emmanuel's father belonged to the Irgun. That fact is true. Kasparian instead draws a lineage, Jewish/Zionist militant ancestors to their American children, to today's politicians/media elites. I think that might be Candace Owens doing that. Let me go back in the video.
And it's crazy because those terrorist groups, like, they then came to the United States, their children became executives, politicians. Like, these are what we are dealing with in media are the sons and the daughters of those terrorists. Make no mistake. I mean,
It's
this
crazy,
is
yeah.
the Emanuel family being one of them. Rom Emanuel, Ari Emanuel. How much power does that family have?
Do not trust that man.
But
Democrats.
their
I'm gonna look right into the. I'm gonna look
father
into the
is crazy.
camera right now.
Like,
do not trust him. He's putting out statements right now about like, oh, we should really rethink our support to Israel. He's full of crap. Okay?
absolutely not.
Yeah,
That
he
family was born
was in the
on-
IDF. Like, no, don't trust him. Democrats.
So obviously, the fact that someone's father belonged to an armed organization does not establish the child's politics, reliability, morality, or culpability. And this has to do with this line of reasoning. Jewish/Zionist militant ancestors leads to their American children, which leads to today's politicians/media elites. So the anti-Semitism assessment here is strong anti-Semitism relevant content. We should be somewhat cautious about calling this independently dispositive anti-Semitism because the stated category is descendants of Zionist militants rather than the Jews universally. But in the surrounding corpus, which already contains Jewish control rhetoric, the passage takes on a considerably greater significance, right? So within the context of our report and our findings and the evidence, this particular passage takes on considerably greater significance. Okay. So Kasparian just said Rom Emanuel was in the IDF. This needs correction. The transcript appears to render the line somewhat garbled. Yeah, I think she did. She said it was in the IDF. But the intended proposition is clearly that Rom Emanuel served in the IDF, which is misleading. Rom Emanuel never served as an Israeli soldier. During the 1991 Gulf War, he spent roughly 2 weeks in Israel as a civilian volunteer on an Israeli military base, reportedly helping maintain truck brakes. This is a real Israel connection. Calling it, quote, serving in the IDF without specifying civilian status materially exaggerates it. So that's a piece of misinformation there. Do not trust him. Democrats need to distance themselves from these people. This is Kasparian's continuation concerning Rom Emanuel standing alone, opposing Rom Emanuel because of his political record or Israel policies is obviously legitimate. But immediately after, number one, discussing pre-state Jewish territories, calling today's American political/media figures their, quote, sons and daughters, naming the Jewish Emanuel family, emphasizing the father's militant lineage. Kasparian tells Democrats not to trust Rom. That causal context matters. This is relevant with regards to anti-Semitism, to guilt by an ancestry, which is a high concern, unified across our three major sources of definition. Our government has been infiltrated by people prioritizing Israel. This is probably the most important new direct Kasparian finding. Kasparian describes the American government as, in her words, infiltrated by people who are much more concerned with foreign policy that benefits Israel than what's better for the American people. The language deserves a finer analysis than, quote, criticism of Israel equals anti-Semitism, which of course that isn't the case. There's a legitimate underlying phenomena, but there's a problematic formulation here. Infiltrated by people is different from Israel spends money on lobbying and public diplomacy. It suggests insiders secretly penetrating U.S. institutions whose actual loyalty lies elsewhere. Placed alongside Kasparian's previously confirmed, quote, the Jewish lobby does control the U.S. and America being, quote, occupied and controlled by Israel, this becomes much harder to treat as accidental wording. So the verdict here, strong hidden control / dual loyalty structure, anti-Semitism relevance, would be high under JDA / Nexus style analysis. We have more conspiratorial claims here. That's more Candace. I'm not going to adjudicate all of the falsehoods in this. It would take too long. I'm just specifically looking at Anna Kasparian, if there's what's relevant from an anti-Semitic perspective. Yep. Does someone have something there to say?
No, this is Candace Owens wilding out.
Yeah. They own Vegas? What? Who says this? This is at 44 minutes. Let's go to that. 44 minutes.
The White House.
I mean, he said it himself.
Mhm.
I mean, that's the thing that I guess I appreciate about Trump, if you want to put it that way. I mean, I don't know if it's due to lack of sophistication or if it's just that he can't help himself, but he just says it. He just says it. And so I choose to believe him when he says that, Miriam Adelson loves Israel more.
You don't choose your beliefs, by the way, folks. You're either convinced of a proposition or you're not. You can't choose to be convinced. You will become convinced. It's something that happens to us. It's not something we choose.
More than the United States, that she's got a lot of money, that she, is a big donor. He's communicating to us, listen, I'm doing what I'm doing because she bought me.
But that's also, by the way, what I think is wrong with Kash Patel. He's from Las Vegas. Las Vegas is a gambling empire. That's it. They own Vegas. So when I see people coming out of Vegas,
they own
my
Vegas.
immediate assumption is, well, you're already, if you made it up the chain in Vegas, you've already done some deals.
Okay, so it was Candace Owens that says they own Vegas. Las Vegas is not owned by one Jewish/Israeli network. That's insane. Anti-Semitism relevance, moderate to strong, contextual evidence. Because when I get to this point of actually moving away from the data and listening to some of the ways people are saying these things publicly, it's hard not to laugh at it because it's just so epistemically ridiculous. But yes, some people just have a really bad way of thinking and conspiratorial line drawing, overgeneralization. These are just common indicators of bad thinking, of bad knowledge making. So anti-Semitism relevance, moderate to strong contextual evidence because it occurs directly inside a Jewish/Israeli money and control narrative. This isn't something we should use on itself, but it's just, adding little blips on the radar to the pattern of, Jewish control. Let's see. There's a lot of things here that are materially overstated, not established, speculation, conspiratorial. Wow. Who says this? Okay, this is primarily Owens. I'm going to play this one. We're going to do Candace Owens soon, but
this is fun. It's a fun little preview of the insanity to be.
At 20 minutes, is that at 20 minutes and 14 seconds? Yes, it is. Okay. Holocaust education as brainwashing. Okay, this will be interesting. This was early in the conversation. Wow.
That's so immoral. But they turn around and they try to make us look like we're the immoral ones because we have a problem and we're speaking out about this.
That's exactly right. And you understand even within the Jewish population. And that's why I've done so much. I've made such an effort over the last year to wake up Jewish Americans to this, right?
Yes.
Because I view them as you were brainwashed. This is what you think. I mean, this is the whole reason they started the program of birthright. And when the ADL guy got caught at a private call saying that, we need to kind of come up with something. We're losing Gen Z. We got to do like we did when we established that program for birthright. And this is why Max Blumenthal has done such incredible work because he went on birthright and he spoke about that experience. They're brainwashing them so young, right? We are all subject to brainwashing. That is the most important thing that I think I have come out of learning as how did I get brainwashed? I thought the same thing. I was watching the Holocaust movies. All of that is a part of your growing up, your brainwashing experience, what you're learning in the classroom, who is the victim, and who do you have to defend, who is being oppressed. And so there's this sort of trigger mechanism that is within all of us. It's buried within us from the time that we're kids, and we don't realize it because we're just taking in so much media. We're listening to our teachers, and then we're like, October 7th happens, and then they go, remember all that stuff? This is now, you have to understand what they're going to do next. Think about what happened. You don't want another Holocaust.
It's like priming you to be accepting of something that just goes against your core principles.
And for Jewish.
Oh, man. Okay, so Holocaust education is, quote, brainwashing. This is primarily Owens, not Kasparian. But you notice Anna did not be like, hold on there. Owens argues that, it was kind of like a yes and. Owens argues that Holocaust movies, schooling, and Jewish family memory create a kind of childhood brainwashing, conditioning people to support Israel. She then says Jewish Americans receive it, quote, 20 times worse through family stories, synagogue, grandparents, etc. This is one of the clearest anti-Semitism relevant passages in the interview. It doesn't merely criticize Israeli state propaganda. It converts Holocaust education, survivor family memories, synagogue/community life into elements of political indoctrination mechanism. Verdict: anti-Semitism strong. The allegation effectively treats authentic Jewish collective trauma and integrational Holocaust memory as machinery for manufacturing Israeli political loyalty. That maps strongly onto prejudicial assumptions about Jewish dual loyalty and communal manipulation. This is just pure anti-Semitism here happening before our very eyes. Yikes.
I mean, TLDR, if you have to make a podcast about how you're not anti-Semitic, you're probably anti-Semitic.
I mean, yeah, there's some wisdom in that thought.
Jewish Americans too, so you can understand why they reacted the way that they did right away.
Of course, yeah.
They're going to get that 20 times worse. It's going to be your stories about your grandma in your book. You go to temple. You go to you go to.
Anna Kasparian's just like nodding along, just like people. It's like Hassan Piker was doing with Norman Finkelstein.
Synagogue, and you're going to have those presets. And then it went too far. And a lot of them snapped out of it. And now I get Jewish people emailing me.
Totally.
Being like, I don't know what this is. I don't know why I'm being told I have to defend Jeffrey Epstein. I don't know why I'm being told
it's wild.
I have to defend Bibi Netanyahu. So
can we just address how brazenly obvious, like, okay, when every pro...
So she wasn't going to challenge any of that anti-Semitism. This is what I'm talking about. Like, even in this, like, this wasn't even, this particular moment was not even flagged by my system, but this is a relevant moment of not pushing back against the anti-Semitism and nodding along and amplifying it by way of your acknowledgement. Like, how many instances would we see of this if we went through all of Anna Kasparian's publicly available work?
Israel media figure comes out at the same time and basically says, oh, there's no big deal with the Epstein files. They shouldn't be released. You're giving it away. Like, you're giving it away. Like, you guys are too obvious. And what I'm wondering is, was the propaganda always this bad? Or is it that we're just a lot more awake now because there's diversified independent media? People are kind of breaking out of their bubble, so it's harder to lie to us. So their like propaganda muscle has atrophied to some extent.
So well said.
Right?
I think it's the latter. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we are more awake than we've ever been. There's independent media. And it's also, like you said earlier, they can't help themselves. So the entire strategy of the Daily Wire to try to destroy me actually woke a lot of people up. It's like, my goodness, Candace was going around Judeo-Christian, doing all the things. She worked at Prager. You want me to believe that overnight Candace Owens became an anti-Semite to
For
Adolf
real,
Hitler?
though. I know.
She was working with Ben Shapiro and Marisha Strait and Dennis Prager. And they're like, yeah, no, it's crazy how it happened. She fell and bumped her head and now she's Adolf Hitler. And that it's
Just because you work with black people or have black friends doesn't mean you're not racist towards black people. This is that same crap. Like, I think of that old man that when someone's like, are you racist against black people? And then the old man points to his black dog. This is like the low resolution thinking that's happening here. This is rough. Like, I have Jewish friends. I was working with Ben Shapiro, like, and then all of a sudden, come on.
It's the whiplash. It's too fast.
Yeah.
People go, okay, you had me. Maybe you had me at Nick Fuentes. You know, this is like, people go, okay, he was done early. He's 18. We didn't know who he was. But they just start moving, and then you're going, it's Candace Owens. Oh no, Tucker Carlson bumped his head and became Adolf Hitler.
Right.
It becomes way too, and then you go, okay, let me go back and really see what's happening
Totally,
here.
because, I mean, look, Nick Fuentes is...
Just like the way Adolf Hitler's name is being thrown around. Not everyone who's anti-Semitic or an anti-Semite is Adolf Hitler. Just the overgeneralization, the radical thinking, the extremism in the use of terms, comparisons to Hitler, comparisons to Nazi Germany. This kind of stuff is just getting repeated and repeated and repeated, and it becomes normalized in the vernacular. And I wonder if any of these people have ever even read a detailed piece of history about Adolf Hitler or Nazi Germany. Like, if we were to sit them down and issue them a 100 or 200 quiz questionnaire, how badly would they fail? And let's say we would set it up, that would include a lot of misinformation about World War II as well in the multiple choice questions. Like, yeah, man, I just it's this use of language just screams ignorance to me. Okay, what's our next? I want to see. Someone says someone eventually says, does it say who? Every pro-Israel media figure opposed Epstein file release. That's just a false universal claim. This is conspiracy reasoning. What else is here relevant to our today's project? Okay, the anti-Semitism findings from this transcript: Anna Kasparian, government infiltrated by Israel, prioritizing people, sons and daughters of those terrorists, Emmanuel family / inherited suspicion, the Rahm Emanuel IDF characterization, Israel explains Western Muslim migration. Man. And then Candace Owens had her own pile of anti-Semitism in this video, but we'll be going into the Candace Owens trenches 2 days from now, because I think it's important that we do, well, maybe Candace Owens tomorrow. I'll think about it. Either Candace Owens or Cenk Uygur tomorrow.
Both of them should be fun. One a lot more calm than the other, though.
Yeah. Does this change the Kasparian report? Yeah, we're just adding evidence on the side of Anna Kasparian's anti-Semitism through this. So, yeah, I wanted to look at that one. But, yeah, I mean, the determination from our report, my feelings about the report, and the available evidence have just, I think it strengthened the conclusion here. The cumulative record supports describing Anna Kasparian as an anti-Semite. That's the finding. And this was just more information that we just saw that is in favor of that conclusion. So the video I release tomorrow will be titled, and it'll be an edited down version of this live stream today, but it will be titled, Anna Kasparian is an anti-Semite.